Welcome to Center for Spiritual Living in Portland, Oregon. Listen past the end of to find out more about our spiritual center and ways that you may collaborate with us. Good morning, everyone. So glad you're here. That was Nancy Ashley, who came into the sanctuary earlier this week to record our announcements, and she also gifted us with an ending prayer that you'll be able to check out at the end of the service today. She mentioned that all of our activities are on our website, but let me give you that website address too. It's cslportland.org. So you can always look forward to what's going on at the center here, either virtually or in the other reality at cslportland.org. Well, as you know, this month we're kind of doing our Buddhist nature things. Of course, we're not official Buddhists, but I think one of the traditions that we like to honor, one of the spiritual traditions that we like to honor is Buddhism. And so we're using Pema Chodron's book, Taking the Leap, and we're having a variety of other Buddhist inputs. And today, to start out, I wanted to do a meditation in the Buddhist tradition. Now, actually, when you practice it yourself, it's entirely silent. And so, but don't worry, I'm not going to just subject you to 10 minutes of watching me doing something silently. Really, I want to sort of guide you through this process so that you'll feel confident in doing it yourself as your own silent meditation later on. Well, the meditation, as I said, comes from Tibetan Buddhism, and it's called Tonglen. And the idea of it is that almost in an alchemical way, almost as a spiritual transmutation, we can turn negative energy into positive energy. We can turn negative thoughts and beliefs into positive thoughts and beliefs. And so it uses our breath to transform negativity into compassion for ourselves and others. So by doing Tonglen on a regular basis, you'll begin letting go of significant elements of fear, of negativity, of belief in lack or disease. You'll be able to let go of that, unburden your heart, and develop more clear thinking that leads to healthier lifestyles and choices. All right, so again, normally this would be something you're doing silently, but for now, just sit comfortably and listen to my voice as I describe the process. You can even do Tonglen when you're walking. The whole idea is just to allow yourself to be relaxed, whether you're sitting, standing, walking, or laying down. As you straighten your back and relax your body, you begin to breathe deeply. We breathe in and out. And with Tonglen, we engage in what's called circular breathing. We breathe slowly and deeply through our nostrils, and with the in-breath and out-breath being the same length and without a pause in between. So it's really in and out, in and out, in and out, and in and out, and in and out. So I invite you just to keep up what's called this circular breathing. Just breathe gently but deeply. The in-breath the same length as the out-breath. No need for a pause in between. In-breath and out-breath. And in-breath and out-breath. So in Tonglen, as we breathe in, we allow any greed, anger, jealousy, fear, any negativity in our own breath, in our own mind, in our own self, to be part of that in-breath. We breathe it in, we acknowledge it, And then on the out breath, we claim compassion for ourselves. We claim safety for ourselves. So we breathe in and we breathe out. And we breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in anxiety, but we breathe out peace. We breathe in fear of the unknown, but we breathe out equanimity. So just find something in your heart that's troubling or unwanted, some idea of lack or fear. We breathe that in and we breathe out compassion for ourselves. We breathe in the negativity, and spirit inside transforms it into peace. We breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in fear of disease, and we breathe out the wholeness that is God. We breathe in and we breathe out. Feel your heart just slowing down a little bit as we settle into this practice. It is the power of pure spirit that transmutes these negative thoughts and ideas into pure peace, pure love, pure safety. The other nice thing about Tan Glen is we can not only do it for ourselves, but we can do it for other people. And so often after this circular breathing for a certain amount of time, when we reach that sense of peace for ourselves, when we've processed our own negative thoughts and emotions, then we extend that delightful practice to someone else, someone that we love. And so we picture our loved one in our mind, and we breathe in any troubles that they're experiencing. We breathe in any discomfort or pain that they might be experiencing. And then we breathe out compassion. We breathe out safety. We breathe out that sense of wholeness and perfection. And so just pick someone that you love in your own mind and allow your circular breath to transmute any negativity in their lives into something more positive. Once again, we breathe in and we breathe out, and we breathe in and we breathe out, and we breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in anything unpleasant going on in that person's life, and we breathe out the safety, perfection, the life that they deserve. Just continue breathing easily and comfortably for your loved one. In comes the negativity, but out towards them that gentleness of life itself. We breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in and we breathe out. But of course, it doesn't have to be just someone that we love. We can also perform Tan Glen even for someone that we dislike, maybe someone that we have a grudge for, or someone that we think is acting inappropriately. Again, we breathe in that suffering that perhaps they're going through. We breathe in anything that stands in their way of having more peace, more love in their lives. We breathe that in, and then we breathe out the peace and love that all humanity deserves. And so picture in your mind's eye maybe someone that you have trouble being around, or someone that you have misgivings about, and let us extend our hand of meditation and prayer to them. We breathe in all their trouble, all their discord, and we breathe out peace and compassion. And so for just a moment, continue that circular breathing as we breathe in all that is wrong with the world, all the trouble, all the strife. And then we breathe out our compassion, our love, the peace that's in our heart. You see why we start with ourselves. We have to be in that place of peace to begin with before we can extend it to the people that we love and to other people in the world. So I like to recommend doing Tonglen every morning for just a few minutes, centering ourselves, showing compassion for ourselves. And then when we feel that compassion, when we feel that safety and freedom in our own lives, we first extend it to friends and family, and then we extend it to others. We breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in the world's hurts and harms, and we breathe out peace, equality, and unity for all. And when we have extended our compassion, our Tonglen to a few individuals, we can also open it up to doing Tonglen for the world. We can breathe in the suffering of the entire world. We can breathe in the injustice that we see, or the trouble that we see in the world. We breathe it in and we breathe out unity and peace. We picture in our mind maybe a place of discord in the world, and we breathe in that discord, allowing pure spirit to transform it into equanimity and peace, into that sense of life where before there was a fear of death. For example, lately I've been breathing in the political unrest, the divisiveness of the United States, and breathing out unity, peace, and compassion for all. Try it with me if you would. We breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in and we breathe out. In comes political unrest, and out comes unity. In comes divisiveness, but out comes peace and compassion for all. We breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in and we breathe out. Another Tonglen that I've been doing recently is around the unfair treatment of African Americans in the United States. And so I breathe in their unfair treatment, and I breathe out prosperity for them. I breathe in that sense of fear, and I breathe out peace and safety and compassion. Please join me in this Tonglen as we breathe in and we breathe out. As we breathe in and we breathe out. We breathe in disenfranchisement, but we breathe out full parity. We breathe in fear, but we breathe out compassion and safety. Just follow your breath to transmute this issue from something that is so troublesome for our country right now, and we transmute it into pure peace, pure love, pure prosperity, pure equality. We breathe in and we breathe out. 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 When we feel complete in our Tonglen meditation, we acknowledge, of course, that our lungs, that our minds have been used as a blessed tool from Spirit as we transmute it, as we change this negative energy into the positive. But the final step is one of purification. If any of that negativity still resides within us, as a process of that transmutation, we simply allow that to pass out of our lungs. We breathe in the peace and joy of the universe, and we breathe out anything lingering behind, any negativity. We breathe out anything that is filling our heart with heaviness. It's simply gone from us, and we find ourselves pure and at peace. So I invite you to build into your own spiritual practice this Tonglen meditation, this useful Tibetan practice of breathing in the troubles of the world, personal and impersonal, and breathing out, transmuted through God itself, peace and joy, happiness, contentment, compassion. And so whenever you're ready, I invite you to come more presently back into the room you're in. Begin to notice the small sounds and activities around you. We bless this time of meditation. We bless Tonglen and the Tibetan masters who created this centuries ago. We give thanks to it all, and we open our eyes. So next up, we have some music for you. I know LaRhonda Steele and our Fabulous Friends band were here yesterday doing some recording, and so we have a song for you, I Choose to Be Happy. It's LaRhonda Steele and the Friends band. Please enjoy.
As I walk along life's path, each step I take is a choice I make. I'm guided by the light within. I breathe and leap again. I choose to be happy. I choose to be free. I choose to live authentically. Right here in the moment, far from the past. Each step that I take, it sets me free at last. On this journey of awakening to each moment of existing, accepting life as it ebbs and flows, I lean in to the dynamic energy flow. I choose to be happy. I choose to be free. I choose to live authentically. Right here in the moment, letting go of the past. Each step that I take, oh, it sets me free at last. Ah, yes. Oh, choose to be happy. Choose to be free. You can choose to live authentically. Yeah. Be here in the moment. Let go of the past. Each step that you take, each breath you take will set you free at last. Happy. Oh, happy, yeah. Free. Oh, free, yeah. Oh, live authentically. Be here in the moment. Oh, let go of the past. Each step that you take, yes, it'll set you free. Take that leap. Oh, yes, you choose. Thank you, Ken Brewer. Thank you, Jim Solberg. Thank you, Donnie Schultz. I am LaRhonda Steele. Be blessed.
What a blessing to have LaRhonda Steele in our band. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. As you know, we're using Pema Chodron's book, Taking the Leap, this month, and we're discovering that sometimes it is our very thinking processes, our very inward nature, some of the habits of who we are and what we believe that actually get us in trouble. And you'll remember last week we talked about the idea of the good wolf and the bad wolf, both being kind of vying for control of our heart. The bad wolf, that part of us that's easy to lash out, that part of us that wishes for revenge, that part of us that thinks that we're remaining hurt from all of the troubles we've experienced in our life, and that it's appropriate for us then to deal back out some of that hurt to the world. Also, of course, the good wolf, that wolf of compassion, of love, that wolf that's easy to forgive. And you'll remember the story from last week of the elderly grandfather talking to his grandson. And the grandson asked, well, which is the wolf that wins? Which is the wolf that comes out ahead? And the grandfather said, the one that we feed. And so today we're going to talk about why sometimes feeding the bad wolf seems almost irresistible, that part of us that just can't can't let go of a fight, that part of us that gets triggered now and then, and what we can do about it. And I think I want to start off with a little bit of a story, a personal story, if you don't mind, to help illustrate this. So, I went to college at University of Oregon in Eugene, Oregon, and I remember. Well, I'm pretty sure it was the first boyfriend I ever had. He and I decided we'd go on a picnic one Saturday when we didn't have any classes. And we climbed up Spencer's Butte just outside of Eugene because it has a gorgeous view of the Willamette Valley and the downtown area. And we'd taken along our picnic supplies. I think we took a couple beers with us, as well as the usual potato salad and all that junk. And we had a blanket that we put out on the some flat area where we found, and really it was a lovely day. And I remember just thinking how perfect everything was. Everything just seemed, well, of course, right, young and in love. What could go wrong, you think? So on the way home, though, I noticed that I was starting to kind of itch. That especially where my the lower part of my legs and my arms and hands, and so I dropped my friend off at his apartment, but by the time I'm getting home, I'm looking at my skin, and oh my gosh, I'm turning red and itching, and then of course I'm starting to scratch, and I realized we probably were literally sitting on a patch right under our blanket, probably a patch of poison oak. And so I call my friend, and sure enough, he's having the same kind of symptoms. And I ended up actually going to the health clinic there at University of Oregon on campus because it was almost uncontrollable. Has everyone here experienced something like poison oak or poison ivy? I think back in the East, it's more like poison ivy instead of poison oak. But I got to tell you, the only thing that rivaled that in my life was one time we went on vacation and I got covered with mosquito bites. It was the same kind of thing. It's like irresistible urge to itch. And it was interesting. I still remember the story that the doctor told me when I went to the medical clinic on campus. He said that some people will itch and scratch even in their sleep, and that he had seen people that scratched themselves literally raw while they were sleeping. And so it's interesting. I share that with you because there's something in the East tradition, something in Buddhism, that is called Shenpa. And now sometimes you'll see that translated, Shenpa, as attachment. But Pema Chodron says it's really being more like being hooked on something. It's almost something that's irresistibly hooked into you, like that scratching when you feel the itch. And so for her, Shenpa is both the itch itself and the irresistible need to scratch it. And so let me give you some examples, because of course we're not talking about necessarily physically being hooked, although it does apply honestly to alcoholism and when we're hooked on drugs or things like that. But she's talking more like being hooked on pain, being hooked on mental attachments to pain, to suffering, to having your life go a very certain way and not wanting to have that messed with. It's being hooked on maybe your perception of yourself or your loved ones, being hooked on your life, being in a very precise way. And when you don't get that way, what happens? It's that irresistible urge then to scratch, to lash out, to try to bring it back into your own control, to try to bring it back to the way you want it. So it is the itch. It is noticing that something is wrong, noticing, I'm really struggling with this. I'm hooked on wanting it to be the way it is. And then it's the scratch. It's lashing out. It's doing whatever you can to other people and even people that you love to try to bring them back into control. You want things to come back the way they are. So that is this idea of Shenpa. But I've also heard it described as having your button pushed. Is everybody familiar with having your button pushed? So think about this for a minute. And it's interesting because I noticed, gosh, maybe about 10 years ago, that when anyone questioned my honesty or questioned maybe sort of my virtue, but I think of it really as honesty. I would really kind of get heated up about it, and I remember thinking, well, where did this come from? Where did this idea of being inflamed if someone questioned my honesty or integrity? Where did that come from? And I had to remember back, gosh, I want to say I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. And my best friend and neighbor, Johnny Nye, and I, we had been sent over to a friend, Mrs. Moore's house. I don't know, our parents were off doing some crazy thing, and they found Mrs. Moore as a reluctant babysitter. And here she is, like in her 70s, and we're like, I don't know, 8 or 9, and wanting to tear up the house and carry on. And in her house, she had a big attic. And I think she thought, well, they can't do too much damage up there, and it'll get them out of my hair. So she sent us up to the attic with some board games to play and things like that. But I got to tell you, Johnny and I, not really content to play quietly, right? And so she yelled up to us a few times to be quiet. And so we eventually did settle down, but then we decided we'd go through all of Mrs. Moore's things. I know, I still kind of shudder at the thought, but it's not like she didn't say we couldn't or that we shouldn't. And so here we are going through boxes of her Christmas ornaments and all the kind of crazy stuff that people would have up in a finished attic kind of storage room. And sadly, in this process, my friend Johnny broke something. And I was trying to remember what it was, whether it was like a glass tree topper. I remember it was either made out of glass or ceramic. And of course, there we are with the broken whatever it was, horrified, right? Well, now my urge was, well, how are we going to tell her this? But I got to tell you, Johnny probably even more troublesome than me, right? His urge was, we don't say a word. We just pack it back up and she'll think it was broken in some other way. So anyway, the day moves on. We're back with our parents. But about 2 days later, my mom gets the phone call. That Mrs. Moore, I swear she must have gone up to the attic and did an inventory of everything to figure out if we'd taken anything, or maybe she heard it break. I don't know. But there, my mom on the phone, and her face gets redder and redder and redder. And once I know who's on the phone with her, of course, I'm horrified. I want to tell you that was the day that a button got installed in me. From that day forward, anytime someone accused me of doing something wrong, when I hadn't really done too much wrong, right? It was actually Johnny that had broken the thing, right? She wasn't so upset that we had looked through some of her stuff. It was the broken thing and the fact that we'd covered it up. And so from that point onward, there was just this little piece of Larry that when he was falsely accused, when someone questioned his integrity, oh my gosh, right? The self-defense mechanisms would kick in. So that was a button installed in me probably when I'm trying to remember, 8 or 9 years old, that is still active in me. And today, if someone mentions that something is missing or something was broken, there's still that wounded little boy in me that's like, it wasn't me. I wasn't anywhere near it. Right? And totally out of character. I mean, it may not even be something that's important to anyone. And still that urge to defensiveness. Well, now this is a great example of Shenpa. It's when I react, I scratch that itch, right? I'm responsible for both the itch and the scratch. It's like I dived right into the poison ivy or poison oak all on my own because it's in me to feel that itch, right? I'm not really being accused of something. Someone's simply saying something's missing. But immediately I take it as an accusation because that shenpa is in me, that itch is in me. And then what do? I get terribly defensive. It's like, no, it wasn't me. And the other person's going, wait a minute, I just said something was missing. I was hoping you'd help me look for it. This has nothing to do with you. And yet, that attachment to the way that I was then and what happened, it pressed my button and I act out. So how do we work through these things? Because what I know is that's an example of a button that I recognize and I'm watching for and I don't react to anymore. I've kind of disconnected the wiring of that button. That's a patch of poison oak that I'm aware of and I'm not going to sit in anymore. But how many hundreds of little buttons do we all have installed? How many of us, day in and day out, allow ourselves to wander into the poison oak and still itch and scratch like mad? Well, I have some ideas for getting through this, but it's time for my Mullah Rasnudin story for the week. As you know, it's the Sufi metaphysical fool, Mullah Nasruddin, and I'm using some of his humor stories throughout the month. So Mullah Nasruddin was considered a fool by many, but perhaps the wisest of fools. Many people would come to him for advice, and one day a young farmer came with family problems. Mullah, he said, my wife's mother moved in with us and is constantly griping and complaining. She gets in the way, the fellow complained, and there's hardly ever peace and quiet in the home. And there's no privacy for us. Well, Nasruddin scratched his long white beard as he considered the matter, and then he said, well, you know, your problem is not easily solved, but it can be remedied if you will take my advice exactly as I give it. Well, I will, said the farmer. Then Nasruddin asked, do you have any chickens? Chickens? Well, yeah, we have 5. Move them into the house with you, said Nasruddin. Well, the young farmer reluctantly agreed. The next week, the farmer went back to see Nasruddin, who asked, so how's it going? It's worse, said the man. Now there's chicken poop everywhere. And in addition to my mother-in-law, the chickens add their own noise. Excellent, said Nasruddin. Do you have a goat? The farmer nodded hesitantly. Well, 2, he said. Even better. Move them into the house with you, said Nasruddin. Well, the following week, the farmer was back to see Nasruddin. What the heck did you think would happen when I moved the goats in? Now the commotion and the filth are intolerable. Perfect, said Nasruddin. Do you by any chance have a pig? Well, at that point, it was too much for the young farmer. He shook his fist at Nasruddin and went home. He and his wife put the animals back in the yard while his mother-in-law worked hard to clean up the mess that the animals had made. And the young farmer and his family lived well and happy for many years. I know, some of you are going, what? What kind of a crazy story is that? Well, what Nasruddin is really teaching is that life often presents us with a mess. Life is not what we would always want it to be. Life is always changing. One moment we're experiencing happiness and peace in our lives. The next moment there may be disarray and trouble. And what he's saying, of course, is to allow an acceptance of what is. Not to try to fight it, not to try to worm your way out of your own life, but rather to be okay with it. Rather to take it upon yourself to make the best of whatever situation is in your life right now. When we try to avoid what's happening, when we try to say, this isn't happening to me, you see we're falling into that idea of being hooked on our life needing to be an exact certain way. It's needing to be exactly the way we would want it with our own definition of peace and quiet, our own definition of abundance or peace or what love looks like. And the truth is the universe is always changing. And when we try to get out of our own lives, when we try to force the mother-in-law out, or when we try to get advice for making things back the way they were, well, the trouble is life doesn't want to go back to the way that it was. Life is ever moving forward. And so the way that we avoid shenpa, the way that we avoid getting hooked on life, is an openness to what comes as it comes, to just the natural movement of life. Have you noticed that there is just a natural movement to life? Have you noticed that you are different than you were 20 years ago? Have you noticed that life keeps moving forward, that we age, our bodies age, that our neighbors come and go, that our friends come and go, that our families transition over time? Have you known someone that when their children moved off to college, it was as though a part was ripped out of their hearts? They were so used to having the kids at home, right? There were those hooks involved. There were those expectations involved that literally, when that change occurred and the children moved off to have families of their own or moved off to college or something like that, it is as though the soul itself was plunged into that patch of poison oak. So how do we move forward in the natural movement of life? I like to think of it as just smiling and going with it. And I know that sometimes that may sound like a surrender, that when things are not going the way you like them to, it wants to invite us to itch that scratch or to scratch that itch. It wants to invite us to act out, to get things back the way they were. But the natural movement of life will never take you back. It will always be an uphill battle. It will always bring about misery as we try to bring things back the way they were. Have you ever noticed sometimes that especially men in middle age will act out in ways to regain their glorious years, and I don't know, when they were 20 or 30, and they buy red sports cars, and they start ignoring their families and things like that? It never works. We simply cannot go back in that way. Despite the itch that we're feeling, the answer, of course, is not to scratch. The answer is to go with the natural movement of life and just allow yourself to be uncomfortable. So back again to the advice that was given to me by that doctor at the campus at University of Oregon in the health clinic there. The answer to poison oak is to not scratch the itch. When you scratch the itch, it actually spreads the poison oak. You actually get worse. And the same is also true of shenpa. The more you act out, the more you try to move things back the way they are, the more you try to control things, literally the worse it gets, because you're going against the natural movement of life. And so the best advice is to simply stop, to take a pause, to take a breath, to breathe in and allow yourself to be uncomfortable. Now, here's something, a very un-Eastern advice. Allow yourself, almost as a meditation, to be uncomfortable. Say to yourself, oh my gosh, there's this big change at work. I'm feeling super uncomfortable. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling like there's something I ought to do. And tell yourself, no. I am feeling anxious. I am feeling like this is a step backwards. I am feeling that negativity welling up in me. I'd like to lash out. I'd like to start finding blame, right? Some of those natural urges that we have to control the situation. Instead, I'm going to allow the natural movement of life to occur. I'm going to allow myself to feel uneasy or anxious from now because I know that it will pass. I know that 3 days from now, I'm not going to feel this heat. I'm not going to feel this intensity, that this too shall pass. Now, how do we work this into a practice? I think a lot of us, because we're used to kind of lashing out without thinking about it much. We're used to reacting instead of really thinking through what's happening to us right now. So here comes your homework. You knew it was headed your way. Your homework this week is to install a bit of a filter in your mind. See if you can notice the times when your button has been pressed and you're just ready to react to it. Maybe you tend to have your button pressed when you're in traffic and someone cuts you off. Maybe you tend to have your button pressed when a spouse or a loved one questions the sagacity of one of your decisions. Maybe you tend to have your button pressed when someone at work implies that maybe you haven't done the best job that you've done. I don't know what it is, but I do know that we all have buttons. And so next time you can sense your button has been pressed, just take a pause. Allow yourself some compassion. Allow yourself to recognize, I'm feeling the heat right now. I know that button's been pressed. I know my urge is to tell off that person or to speed up in my lane of traffic and cut them off. I know my urge is to do something out of anger, out of fear, out of pain. And instead, I'm just going to allow that feeling to exist. I'm going to resist the urge to scratch. I'm just going to allow myself to be uncomfortable in the moment because I know that the moment will pass. And so that's your homework for this week. I wish you were going to be here in person next week because I would love to compare notes. This is often a very powerful exercise. Just notice yourself being uncomfortable with what someone has said, with what someone has done, with the state of affairs in the world, with the way your neighbor has behaved, or with something that your coworker has done. Just allow yourself to be uncomfortable, to feel angry or anxious. Allow yourself to process through that emotion without scratching, without lashing out, without trying to control the situation back into something that you would prefer. So that's your homework for this week. Well, I'd like to close today with a quote from Pema Chodron and a prayer. Let's just get on with that. All right. So this is from the end of her chapter. She says, each of us can be an active participant in creating a nonviolent future simply by how we work with Shenpa, that idea of being hooked on our emotions. Simply by how we work with Shenpa when it arises. How individuals like you and I relate to being hooked these days has global implications. In that neutral moment, that often highly charged moment, when we can go either way, right? We can either feed the angry wolf or we can feed the somber wolf. We do consistently strengthen old fear-based habits. That's what will tend to happen when we want to scratch. Or can we stay on the dot? Can we fully experience the agitated, restless energy and let it naturally unwind and flow on? There will be no lack of opportunities and no lack of material to work with. It takes courage, determination, and curiosity to stay open and receptive to this negative energy, to the itch and the urge of Shenpa, and to resist scratching. Let us pray. There is one power, one presence, one life, one goodness. Only this one thing. I call it spirit. And what I know about spirit is that it is everything. Every person, every place, every situation, all of it is God. God in form, God in energy, God in our own minds. It is truly all there is. And therefore, I know that God's love is my love, that God's beauty is my beauty. I know that the peace and abundance, the joy and the robust good health of Spirit itself is mine. And because of this, I can resist the urge to lash out. I can stand in my own power. I can stand in that knowledge that Spirit and I are one and that there is only good for me. I do not have to worry about the negativity around me. I don't have to worry about people telling me things that I don't want to hear. I don't have to worry about things happening that are not as I would like them. This is the natural movement of life. This is one thing following the other, and it will all move forward. I can simply choose to accept my life, to live my life as best I can in love, feeding the good wolf, having compassion for others. I can simply allow it to be. And as it is true for me, it is true for everyone. Each of us has that opportunity to feed the good wolf, to extend our hand in compassion, to ignore the minor hurts and harms that are sent our way, just recognizing that they too shall pass. And so for this week and the week after, I know that each person within the hearing of my voice takes that pause, that when that button is pressed, we do not have to lash out or react. We can simply take a breath and choose peace. We can simply take a breath and choose compassion for ourselves and others. We can simply take that pause and accept the love and the light, the safety and the peace of Spirit itself. And so for this, I am grateful. For this, I recognize in every person Spirit present. And so I release this prayer into the activity, into the action of the law itself. I let it be, and together we say, and so it is. Thank you so much for being here today. So glad you joined us. Now is our time of conscious contribution. I invite you to take your gift or your tithe. I think our videographer, Mark Pettijohn, is going to even show you a little video clip of how you might use our website to make a donation. And I know that those of you out there in the world who can contribute do so, and it's with such gratitude that we receive your gifts. You can donate online. Of course, you can mail a check in to us. Either way, know that this good message of science of mind is really moved forward through your contributions of love and also of donations. And so thank you very much for that today. If you'd like, you can repeat after me. If I can remember how it goes. Graciously I give from a place of love, knowing that as I give, so do I surely receive. So I'm going to close today with a final prayer, and I chose another prayer from Buddhism today. Supposedly this was written by Shantideva, an Indian Buddhist sage, in 700 A.D. And what I do know is that this is the Bodhisattva prayer that the Dalai Lama recites every morning as part of his spiritual practice. He says, "May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky until all beings are freed from sorrow and all beings are awakened." And so it is. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll close with a final prayer recorded earlier by Nancy Ashley, one of our licensed practitioners.
As we go within, into that heart space that is our connection with the one power, the one presence, that life force that is everywhere present in, through, and as the universe, that essence of love, infinite, eternal, unconditional love in all of creation. And I know that there is wisdom, grace, unity, wholeness, all of these qualities of God, of Spirit, are fully present in everything, in every part of the universe, in every part of creation. And so I know that that means me, that I am a unique, individualized expression of that one, that all of the qualities of life, of love, of unity, of grace are fully present within me, always available for me to tap into. And as this is true for me, I know it's true for every person hearing this prayer today, that we are beings of spirit, that we are having a human experience as vehicles for all of God's love and life to be expressed in, through, and as us. And so I claim and affirm today, first, that there is the grace of God always present and available within us. That as we go within, we are able to tap into that loving guidance and support always present, knowing that we are able to be supported moment to moment by the grace of God. And with our present moment mindfulness, we are able to be in the presence of this grace, of this unity, of this wisdom at every moment. It allows us to be the truth of who we are to the highest and best of our ability. And so I just give thanks for all of this, for knowing this truth, for knowing that God is grace, that God is wisdom and unity, that God is all of that, the loving essence in, through, and as every one of us. And so I just give thanks for all of this, and I release my word into the action of the law, knowing that the law always says yes, that it is already demonstrating that which we claim right here, right now. And so I just release this, I let it be, and together we say, and so it is.
If you happen to be in the Portland, Oregon area, we'd love to have you visit in person. The Portland Center for Spiritual Living is located at 6211 Northeast Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. We have inspirational services at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. every Sunday. We also have many programs, classes, and workshops developed just for our online audience. To find out more, go to our website at cslportland.org and look under the Online tab. We have a variety of content dedicated specifically for our online listeners. Our mission is to open hearts, ignite minds, and make a difference. If you'd like to support our center, you can donate online at cslportland.org/donate. Our website is also the place to learn more about what's going on at the center or to contact us. Allow us to become part of your extended spiritual community. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are most welcome at the Center for Spiritual Living.